first with the latest on some big on and off the field news. Pleasure to be joined now by ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter. Thanks for your time, Adam.
Anytime, Keith. Good evening.
Good evening. The conference call about Adrian Peterson, 2 o'clock Eastern today. Do we know anything more about it than that?
Well, look, there are a lot of different layers to this right now, Keith, and I think it boils down to the fact that there's a basic disagreement between the NFL and the NFLPA. And the NFLPA believes that when Adrian Peterson signed that letter of agreement to go on the commissioner's exempt list, that when his case was adjudicated in Texas, that the time would be there for him to come off it. And the NFL's left him on that list, much to the dissatisfaction of the NFLPA and Adrian Peterson. So this conference call today now has 5 days for the person listening to it to make a decision. 5 days. But the NFL also has another particular case where it's going to hand down a disciplinary ruling. There's some overlap between the two cases. The Ray Rice case essentially hangs over this entire situation. There's a lot of different layers to it. The Minnesota Vikings ownership has not been heard from. It's been silent in this case. We know that the Vikings front office and players would love Adrian Peterson back, but we don't know whether ownership would welcome him back. A lot of different moving parts, and right now it's in legal limbo.
It's a de facto suspension that they don't have to call a suspension. How convenient for everybody. Meanwhile, in the middle of everything else, it's not every week that there's a DEA raid of the visitors' locker rooms, although sometimes it seems like it should be. Was this about the lawsuit by the ex-players over excessive painkiller use? Was it a coincidence or what?
Well, let's be clear here. Essentially, when it came out, there were stories about raids on locker rooms. Sounded a bit more extreme than it actually is. The fact of the matter is the DEA has had conversations, ongoing conversations, with the NFL for the last 2 years. And my understanding is that what DEA officials were trying to do is to see that the doctors on these visiting teams had licenses to hand out pain medication in those particular states, that they were in compliance. You'll notice that the 3 visits, raids if you want to be extreme, the 3 visits occurred to the Seahawks in Kansas City, the 49ers in New Jersey, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Washington. And this is a topic that the DEA and the NFL have discussed for the last 2 years. One doctor we spoke with said he's licensed to practice in 20 different states. What the DEA wants to make sure is it has NFL physicians and doctors licensed to practice and give out medication in any state it has to visit. We'll see where it goes from here.
Also on this checklist of bizarre things, we had this mess first in San Francisco with a cop doubling as a Niner security guard who gets to the Ray McDonald incident before the called cops got there. Now there's a New York Times story about the Miami Dolphins, in essence, doing the same thing in 2010. Is there a suggestion, a hint, anything you've heard that the league's going to do something about this now blurring or erasure of the line between security by part-time cops, part-time security people, and security from cops?
And there definitely is a blurring there. And I think what's happening here is that basically the NFL is entrusted and in charge of overhauling its entire culture and approach to domestic violence, the way it has conducted business for decades. Essentially, the NFL has always gone too soft on this. And part of this will be looking at the practices of teams employing part-time police officers, full-time police officers as part-time help for these teams that have essentially gotten preferential treatment for players involved in particular cases. The New York Times outlined it very well in regards to the Philip Merlin case and how he treated the woman that he lived with. And I think, again, this is all part of a larger systemic problem that the NFL has to address in overhauling everything about the way it approached domestic violence. This will be one of the aspects of that, Keith.
All right, let's see if we can duck in a question on the field.
Wait, actual on-field stuff?
I don't pay attention to it anymore either. Jonas Gray entered play with no career touchdowns yesterday, ended with 4, and as you tweeted, this ties the record of Herb Henderson of your 1921 Evansville Crimson Giants. But that was it for Herb. He never scored again. Is this going to be it for Jonas?
No, I think Jonas Gray's career will be a little different than Herb Henderson's. The New England Patriots right now are moving into a colder part of the season, a difficult part of the schedule. I think that they found that Jonas Gray can be the thunder and lightning with Shane Vereen and provide a 1-2 combination. And when you get that type of production out of an undrafted free agent who another team could have claimed off waivers when New England cut him this August, I think New England's going to continue to ride him. Bill Belichick grew up in the Giants system, and I think that he's going to play Giants type of football in November, December, power running, decisive running. look, it worked for him last night in Indianapolis. Why would you go away from it? I don't know that we'll see another game where he duplicates the feat of one Herb Henderson and gets 4 more touchdowns. But I think there are more touchdowns ahead for Jonas Gray, just not quite at that pace.
Yeah, the first 2 of them, the Colts are going there. Who's this 35 guy? ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter, as always, great thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Keith.